Hi. No fancy graphics, no intro, no nothing. Not for this video. Why? For my 24-hour charity stream, I decided to talk about my history with cancer. Something I've never talked about on stream, something very few people in the Twitch community knew about. Um, After that stream, there was a couple of people that didn't get to be there. There was some people that wanted more information. Um, and I figured this is the best way to do it. And if you don't fall into one of those two groups, maybe I can at least help you understand what it's like to go through having cancer as a child, or to help you understand, the mentality of it. If you've never had it, if a friend, a family member, anything that has, um, and this kind of ties into why I'm so gung ho about St. Jude. And with this month being so focused on St. Jude, there's really no better time for it. So, what is my story? Um, I have the unfortunate luck, define luck, of having a genetic line that we have what's called familial adenomatous polyposis, and people are going to butcher me for getting that one. It's a mouthful. Um, it's a strand of cancer that it gets passed down by the male side, and supposedly you have a 50-50 chance of getting it. That's what the statistics say. My family's not that lucky. Throughout my family, there's been 13 chances, if I'm not mistaken, of everybody in my family getting it. 12 have. You do the math. I'll let you figure out what the statistics come out to be at that point. I was the unlucky one. However, it didn't happen like it was supposed to. My mother, thankfully, decided when I was 5.5 that she wanted me screened. Every doctor at that point said there's no point. Every research we ever have about this says this isn't supposed to show up until 11, 12, somewhere in that era. We're not going to bother testing until then. She kept pushing, getting more and more different opinions, trying to push and trying to get somebody to finally do it. Because in her gut, she knew that she needed to. Finally, somebody caved and said, "We'll do it. We want to know." Thankfully, they did, and I was lucky. At 6, I was diagnosed with the early stages of colon cancer. When I say early, it it was as early as I could have gotten lucky with, and still had somebody go, you're good. Um, Basically, the colon's coated, um, full of polyps. Testing shows that it is what they think it is. And I spent a large portion of my summer, my 6. How to say it is even difficult, but when I was 6, most of the summer was spent in the hospital. A couple weeks in for surgery, a little while out, recovery, and going back in. And you don't really understand it until you're going. It's a difficult thing to describe when you're that young and you're in a hospital bed for a long time. It's something, I tell everybody when they ask about it. It's one of those things that you can think back and think to the first things that you ever remember thinking when you start remembering things. And it's always, obviously it's when you're young, but a lot of the times people go, oh well, those are only the stories I told you, that's the only reason you remember them. These are the first things I remember legitimately for myself. These are that's the first things that I know are my thoughts, and my memories, and it's hard. But I got lucky. They got in really early, pulled everything out. So I am now the proud owner of 0 large intestine, colon, whatever you want to call it. And basically what that means is they take the small intestine and they do what's called a J pouch. I'm not going to go into much detail. If you really want that much detail, you can you can message me by yourself. I will. I'm sure not everybody wants that, lovely. But basically they just manipulate the small intestine, what's left of it, into what constitutes, as doing the job of both small and large intestine. you go on with your life. At least always that's the hope. The tough thing about cancer, and if you don't know, a lot of times it's not always over. Um, a lot of times there's a high chance that it comes back. Um, that's why people tend to call themselves survivors. Um, but I have the unlucky knowledge of what my percentage is. Um, so, for example, my form of cancer comes with a high chance of of thyroid cancer. That's one of the main things that people look at after you go through what I have, just because it's the next on the spectrum, the next thing down the line. I've had the luck that I've been 21 years clean. It doesn't go necessarily making it easy. Um, you have to get screened pretty regularly. I am lucky in that I get to go in every year and a half. For the longest time, it was a shorter spectrum, but you earn your way of getting clear to longer and longer periods where you can go without somebody having to and prod you do a lot of different things to make sure that you're clean. So why this story and why St. Jude? If you don't know, St. Jude is a children's research hospital. They try to bring in people with a wide spectrum of cancer and other major diseases that they not only want to help people, but they want to research and try to curb and do as much as they can to take it away. And their goal is you never come out with a bill. If you go into St. Jude and you get taken care of, you don't come out with anything on the other, no bill. And it's something that you don't, you can get all the stories, and it's great to hear all the stories that come out, but it's another thing to experience it all together. And that's why I want to be able to explain my story and hopefully help understand what they do, why they do it, and why it's a value. Somebody that's 21 years on. I will say I did not get the chance to experience St. Jude when I went through my treatment. I went to a local hospital that took care of me, but I can understand the value that St. Jude brings, because it's not cheap. It is not a cheap process. No matter what kind of insurance you have, to be in a hospital for 2 weeks, 2 week stints at a time, and to go through consistent barrages of testing, and to basically be the owner of a room in a hospital for 2 weeks at a time, it's incredibly expensive. And so I was lucky that I had a local place near me, but St. Jude is a national place, and that's one of the greatest things about it, and that's what I'm focused on. But it's tough. It's tough going through cancer as a child, because most people would expect a 6-year-old to be running around. Let's go play soccer. Let's go play this, that, and the other thing, and be outside and enjoy before you really get into the deep end of school and job and everything like that, and before you settle down and have a family. It's when you're supposed to really enjoy everything. And if you have a diagnosis, it's definitely not as easy. It's one of those things. It's not even necessarily the people around you. It's in your own head. And having a group that caters to that and can help that, it's such a different thing. Because if you, like, for me, I know, like I said, that's the first things I think about when you ask me, what are my earliest memories? That's going to be some of them, and that's going to be the main ones that pop in my head, because before that, it's bits and pieces. You can't really piece together a ton before you're 6, or 5.5, I guess. That's when everything really started pouring in, and it makes you. I almost want to say you sober up quickly, but you mature quickly. You don't really have a choice. Mortality kind of sets in, and you realize, you realize you're human. But having a place that can cater to that can cater to, purely to a child and purely to what they need, and can handle that thinking and stay with them, because that's a major thing that a lot of people don't take into account. It's not necessarily over. There's a lot of monitoring. There's a lot of, the mental side of it. There's a lot of stigma. For the longest time, I never wanted to talk about it. I didn't want to tell anybody that I had cancer, because I thought they'd look at me. You have side effects here and there, the little things that, kind of quirks that make you after. That's a given. I mean, been people joke I've been cut stem to stern, so um, you'll always have your quirks, but it's a matter of having people that can help you cope with that, and not only just fix you physically. There's a lot of a mentality to it that a lot of people don't take into account, because it's tough to try to explain that to somebody. It's tough to explain, you know, the constant feeling of I'm sick. It must be something. Something came back. It takes forever to get rid of that. And the thought process, oh, I've got, I feel, for me it was my, around my stomach. So, I feel a pain here. I feel this. It must be back. And that thought process of I have to go get checked. And I have to go get this and I have to get that. And you may be right. But you go through this whole period of, it must be back. Something must be wrong. I feel it, something's come up. Or, the whole feeling of you're an odd one out now. Because you think everybody's going to make fun of you, or, I don't even know why. I couldn't tell you why you get this stuff. You just feel like people are going to think of you. Even though it's ridiculous. Heck, when you're a kid, people probably think it's a cool story, but you just don't want to tell it. And there's just there's so much of a mentality around it. Family, like in my family, the people that didn't get it, the survivor's guilt, that should be me, or why did the statistics go in that way and not this way. So there's a lot behind it, and having that support and having a group that specializes, that's what they do. They look for certain diseases that they know how to handle, and they take care of them, and they make sure that not only are you taken care of in that way, but your family's taken care of, and they keep reaching out to you. They make sure that everything's fine. It's a service that's not given enough credit. And that's coming from somebody that can say that honestly. That it's something that isn't given enough credence, that it doesn't go away. So hopefully that helped. I might, maybe I'll post more about this later, as people, if not as, if people ask questions, if people want to know more, if people, have specific questions or want to reach out about it, or, they have stories that they want to talk about. It's heavy stuff, but there are people out there that are doing the right thing and making the difference. And that's who I want to support. And that's why I'm 100% behind St. Jude. I almost want to, honor isn't the right word, but that wasn't the group that I got the honor of working with when I got helped. But I absolutely am 100% behind what they do. And I would have no issue having, if I had a child, having them go through. I mean, obviously I would hope that it doesn't have to be that way, but I told you the stats. So thank you for listening. And I wish everybody the best.